The first warning came as a subtle vibration, almost imperceptible, like a whisper of impending doom. Commander Jennifer Rodriguez felt it in her bones before the alarms screamed to life, their crimson light painting the command center in a hellish glow. Outpost Hermes had always been humanity's most distant settlement, a fragile beacon of exploration, perched on the razor's edge of known space. Quantum sensors erupted with impossible readings. Something massive was emerging from the quantum fold, something far beyond the standard detection profiles of known spacefaring civilizations. Rodriguez's hand instinctively moved to the communication console, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to pulse with an electric urgency. "All personnel, this is not a drill," she announced, her voice cutting through the mounting tension. "Unidentified quantum signatures detected. Prepare for potential hostile engagement." Around her, the command center transformed. Technicians moved with a precision born of countless simulations, their movements synchronized like a complex mechanical dance. Sarah Martinez, the chief quantum systems analyst, was already running diagnostics, her eyes narrow with concentration. "Commander," Martinez called out, her voice tight, "we're looking at something completely off our threat models. These signatures, they're not just large. They're impossible." The first weapon strike hit before anyone could fully process the information. A quantum disruptor blast, a technology so advanced it could literally unmake matter at the atomic level, tore through the outpost's primary defensive shield like tissue paper. The initial impact was silent, a microscopic moment of absolute destruction that expanded outward with terrifying speed. Rodriguez watched in horror as entire sections of the outpost simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not obliterated, simply erased from spatial-temporal reality. Quantum communication systems began to fragment, each transmission becoming a desperate cry into the void. "This is Commander Jennifer Rodriguez of Outpost Hermes," she transmitted on all available frequencies. "We are under massive attack by unknown forces. Quantum disruption in progress. To any receiving station, log this data. Remember us." The station around her was dying. Sections were being systematically removed from existence, entire habitation zones vanishing in pulses of impossible energy. 50,000 colonists, scientists, engineers, families who had traveled millions of light years to build humanity's most distant home, were being methodically eliminated. Martine stumbled, her quantum interface burning out as more sections of the outpost disappeared. "They're not just attacking," she gasped. "They're surgically removing us from existence." Rodriguez knew their chances were zero. But humans didn't go quietly. She initiated the final protocol, a quantum data burst that would carry the story of their destruction across light years. Every piece of research, every fragment of their final moments, would be transmitted, a message in a bottle hurled into the cosmic ocean. The emergency quantum core began its final sequence. Unlike conventional data storage, this was a living memory, a quantum-encoded testament that could potentially reconstruct their entire experience. Rodriguez thought of her wife back on Earth, of the daughter she'd left behind. This transmission would be her final communication. "To whoever receives this," she spoke into the quantum recorder, her voice calm despite the chaos. "We were here. We fought. We discovered. Remember Outpost Hermes." Another quantum disruptor blast. The command center began to dissolve around her. Martinez was already gone, her existence simply erased in a microscopic moment. Rodriguez felt the quantum fields begin to break down, her own molecular structure starting to unravel. Her final thought was not of fear, but of defiance. The Kraxan Imperium would learn that killing 50,000 humans was not a victory. It was a declaration of war. In the vast emptiness of space, where Outpost Hermes once stood, only the quantum echo of their final transmission remained, a ghost of data, a promise of retribution. Somewhere, across millions of light years, someone would receive their message. Someone would remember. 48 hours after the first transmission from Outpost Hermes reached Earth, the world transformed. In the United Nations Emergency War Council chamber, Admiral Michael Thompson stood before a holographic display that pulsed with real-time global data. Every nation, every corporation, every individual had become part of a singular, unprecedented machine of human survival. The quantum communication burst from the destroyed outpost had done more than relay data. It had ignited something primal in human consciousness. Silicon Valley's tech giants abandoned their competitive rivalries. Major corporations like Global Aerospace, Blue Horizon Technologies, and Quantum Dynamics merged their research divisions overnight. Entire university research programs were redirected, with leading scientists from MIT, Stanford, and Beijing University working in perfect synchronization. Dr. Rebecca Williams, head of Advanced Propulsion Research at the International Space Development Consortium, was coordinating a global effort that defied all previous models of human cooperation. Her team had been developing experimental technologies for decades, projects so advanced they made current military hardware look like primitive toys. Now those theoretical designs would become humanity's weapon of vengeance. "We're not just building ships," Williams explained to the War Council, her holographic presentation showing schematics of unprecedented complexity. "We're creating a living network of technological organisms. Each vessel is more than a weapon. It's an evolutionary response to our first true existential threat." Underground facilities across the planet burst into activity. In the Rocky Mountains, massive quantum fabrication centers that had been dormant for decades came online. Massive construction platforms in Earth's orbital zones began assembling ships at a rate that defied all known technological limitations. What appeared to be a rapid response was actually the activation of a generations-long strategic preparation. In Moscow, former rivals from competing design bureaus worked side by side, their previous nationalistic tensions evaporating in the face of the external threat. In Tokyo, entire industrial districts were converted into ship construction zones. The United States redirected its entire military-industrial complex, with defense contractors and government research labs working in perfect, unprecedented harmony. James Rodriguez, a young engineer from a small town in New Mexico, found himself at the center of this global transformation. His specialized knowledge in quantum entanglement systems made him crucial to the ship design teams. What once would have taken years of bureaucratic negotiations now happened in hours. "We're not just building a defense," Rodriguez told his team during a marathon design session. "We're creating a statement, a promise that humanity will not be erased." The global network of automated factories, quantum computing systems, and AI-driven design algorithms worked with a synchronicity that seemed almost supernatural. Each component, each system was designed not just for combat, but for adaptation. The ships would be living entities, capable of learning, evolving, and responding to threats in ways no static weapon could. Economic systems were completely restructured. Stock markets became irrelevant as every resource was channeled into the war effort. Entire industries were repurposed. Luxury car manufacturers retooled to create advanced sensor systems. Consumer electronics companies developed new communication technologies. The world's computational power was unified into a single massive network. Military strategists from every nation convened in secure facilities, developing strategies that went beyond traditional warfare. This was not about territory or resources. This was about species survival. Admiral Thompson reviewed the initial production reports. The numbers were beyond anything in human history. In just 72 hours, humanity was producing more advanced military technology than had been created in the previous century. Each ship was a marvel of engineering. Adaptive nano-armor, quantum entanglement communication systems, weapons that could literally unmake matter at the atomic level. "They thought we were divided," Thompson muttered, looking at the global production maps. "They thought we were weak." The quantum data from Outpost Hermes had done more than document its destruction. It had awakened something fundamental in human nature, a collective consciousness, a unified purpose that transcended all previous limitations. Humanity was no longer a collection of nations, corporations, or individuals. It had become a single, terrifying organism, focused entirely on survival and retribution. The galaxy would soon learn the true meaning of human resolve. The Galactic Observation Network went into complete shock. Dr. Karen Martinez, lead analyst for the Xenometric Research Division, stared at the data streams with mounting disbelief. The human production capabilities defied every known model of technological development, every understanding of industrial scaling, every conceivable limitation of resource management. In the sterile observation chambers of the Galactic Monitoring Station, alien analysts from 17 different species watched in collective stupefaction. The quantum data feeds showed something impossible. Earth was generating battle vessels at a rate that should have been mathematically inconceivable. "This isn't just production," Martins muttered to her colleague, Dr. Eric Chen. "This is a complete reinvention of industrial physics." Each human battle vessel represented a quantum leap in technological design. Unlike the modular, standardized ships of most galactic civilizations, these were living systems, adaptive platforms that seemed to blur the line between machine and organism. The quantum matrices within each ship's core could reconfigure entire systems mid-combat, learning and evolving with each millisecond of engagement. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, a quantum systems integration specialist, understood the true marvel of their design. The ships were more than weapons; they were evolutionary platforms. Each vessel contained a distributed intelligence network that could analyze combat scenarios, develop strategies, and modify its own systems faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. The underground facilities beneath the Rocky Mountains represented the pinnacle of this technological miracle. What appeared to be simple mountain terrain concealed the most advanced production centers in human history. Quantum fabrication systems worked with an efficiency that seemed to violate the basic laws of thermodynamics. Raw materials were transformed into complex battle vessels in hours, not decades. Global resource allocation had become a perfectly synchronized system. Nations that once competed now worked with a level of cooperation that shocked external observers. Rare earth elements, advanced composites, and quantum reactive materials were redirected with surgical precision. Every single resource on the planet was channeled into the war effort. "We're seeing something beyond industrial mobilization," Dr. Chen explained during a classified briefing. "This is a species-level adaptive response. Humanity is transforming itself at a fundamental level." The ship designs themselves were revolutionary. Each vessel contained multiple layers of adaptive systems. The nano armor could reconfigure molecular structures to respond to different types of weapon systems. Communication networks used quantum entanglement to create instantaneous, unhackable links between ships. Weapon systems could literally deconstruct matter at an atomic level. But the most terrifying aspect was the ship's collective intelligence. They were not merely controlled by humans. They were collaborative systems that could make tactical decisions faster than any biological intelligence. The distributed neural networks within each ship could analyze millions of combat scenarios simultaneously, adapting and evolving with each microsecond of interaction. Galactic intelligence services began to panic. Their models showed that at the current production rate, humanity would generate a battle fleet that could potentially challenge the combined military power of 3 major galactic civilizations within weeks. The Kraxan Imperium's military analysts struggled to understand the impossible numbers. How could a species they had deemed technologically primitive produce such an advanced fleet so quickly? Their reports became increasingly desperate, filled with terms like statistical impossibility and fundamental technological divergence. Lieutenant Rodriguez understood something the alien analysts did not. This wasn't just about production. This was about human adaptability. Every ship, every system was a living testament to the species' capacity for rapid innovation. "We're not just building a fleet," she told her team during a strategy session. "We're creating a technological ecosystem. Each ship is a seed, capable of growing, learning, adapting." The global network of automated factories, quantum computing systems, and AI-driven design algorithms worked with a synchronicity that seemed almost supernatural. Entire industries had been transformed overnight. Consumer electronics companies developed advanced sensor systems. Automotive manufacturers created new propulsion technologies. The world's computational power was unified into a single massive network. In 72 hours, humanity had produced more advanced military technology than had been created in the previous century. Each ship was a marvel of engineering, adaptive, intelligent, and prepared for a level of warfare that most galactic civilizations couldn't even conceptualize. The Kraxan had made a fatal mistake. They had not just attacked a colony. They had awakened a sleeping giant. And humanity was just getting started. The laboratory beneath the Colorado Research Complex was unlike any facility in human history. Dr. Michael Chen stood before a holographic projection that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics, his fingers tracing the intricate quantum matrices that formed the core of humanity's most advanced weapon systems. Each of the 700,000 battle vessels represented more than a simple warship. They were living technological organisms, designed to be more adaptive and intelligent than any previous military platform in galactic history. The consciousness matrices embedded within their quantum cores blurred the line between machine and sentient being, creating a distributed intelligence network that could think, learn, and evolve faster than any biological intelligence. "We're not just building weapons," Chen explained to a select group of military and scientific leaders. "We're creating the new form of existence." The weapon systems were a testament to human creativity and scientific innovation. Quantum disruptors that could deconstruct matter at the atomic level. Adaptive nano-armor that could reconfigure its molecular structure in microseconds to counter different types of weapon systems. Communication networks using quantum entanglement that made traditional electronic warfare obsolete. Lieutenant Jennifer Rodriguez walked through the primary testing facility, her hand passing through holographic displays that showed the inner workings of these extraordinary machines. Each ship was a complex ecosystem of technology, with systems that could predict and counter threats before they even materialized. The primary weapon systems defied conventional understanding. Instead of traditional energy weapons or kinetic projectiles, these ships could manipulate quantum fields directly. They could create localized spatial distortions, effectively removing sections of enemy vessels from normal spacetime. The targeting systems used predictive algorithms so advanced they bordered on precognition, analyzing millions of potential combat scenarios simultaneously. "Our greatest weapon is adaptability," Rodriguez told her team during a strategy briefing. "These ships are not just tools. They're living systems that can learn and evolve with each microsecond of interaction." The consciousness matrices were the true marvel. Developed through a combination of quantum computing, advanced neural networks, and breakthrough research in artificial cognition, these systems could make tactical decisions faster than any biological intelligence. They could analyze combat scenarios, develop strategies, and modify their own systems in real time. Dr. Sarah Williams, the lead researcher on the Consciousness Matrix project, understood the profound implications. "We're not just creating intelligent weapons," she explained. "We're developing a new form of collective intelligence. Each ship is both an individual and part of a larger, unified system." The ship's communication networks used quantum entanglement to create instantaneous, unhackable links. Information could be shared between vessels faster than light, creating a distributed intelligence network that functioned like a single massive brain. Enemy attempts to intercept or disrupt communications would be futile. The network could reorganize and adapt faster than any traditional jamming or interference technique could counter. Adaptive nano-armor represented another breakthrough. The exterior of each ship could reconfigure its molecular structure in microseconds, changing its composition to counter specific types of weapon systems. Energy weapons would be absorbed and redirected. Kinetic projectiles would be dispersed across the ship's surface. Quantum disruption attacks would be neutralized before they could cause damage. The weapon systems themselves were works of terrifying beauty, quantum cannons that could literally remove sections of enemy vessels from normal spacetime, spatial manipulation fields that could compress or expand space around a target, quantum entanglement weapons that could simultaneously attack a target from multiple dimensional angles. This isn't just about destruction, Chen told the assembled leaders. This is about redefining the very nature of warfare. Each ship carried more computing power than entire planetary networks. Their distributed intelligence could analyze millions of combat scenarios simultaneously, developing and discarding strategies faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. They could predict enemy movements, counter tactics before they were implemented, and adapt to changing battlefield conditions in microseconds. The global research teams had created something beyond a military platform. These were living technological organisms, each one a complex ecosystem of adaptive systems. They were not just weapons of war, but a statement of human potential, a promise that humanity would not just survive, but would reshape the very nature of existence in the cosmos. The Kraxan Imperium had made a fatal mistake. They had not just attacked a colony. They had awakened a species with the capacity to transform warfare itself, and humanity was just beginning to understand its true potential. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear as the human fleet emerged from quantum tunneling points. Admiral Michael Thompson watched from the command vessel's primary observation deck, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The holographic displays showed multiple dimensional breach points, each one a perfect, mathematically precise emergence that defied everything the Kraxan understood about faster-than-light travel. Commander Jennifer Rodriguez's voice came through the quantum communication network, calm and precise. All systems are synchronized, quantum resonance at optimal levels. The first wave of Kraxan defense platforms detected the human fleet microscans before their full materialization. But detection meant nothing against weapons that could predict and counter threats before they fully formed. The battle would be decided in nanoseconds, not minutes or hours. Kraxan fleet commanders watched in mounting horror as the human vessels seemed to move in ways that violated fundamental laws of spatial dynamics. Each ship was not just a weapon, but a living intelligence that could predict, adapt, and counter threats faster than biological minds could comprehend. Lieutenant Eric Chen, responsible for the fleet's primary tactical coordination, understood the true marvel of their technological breakthrough. The ships were not just communicating. They were thinking as a single, massive organism. Each vessel was both an individual unit and part of a larger, collective intelligence that could analyze and respond to combat scenarios in microseconds. The first Kraxan weapon discharge appeared almost beautiful, a massive energy pulse that would have decimated any known military force in the galaxy. But the human fleet didn't just defend. They anticipated. Entire sections of the human fleet seemed to shift and flow, quantum matrices realigning to absorb and redirect the incoming energy. Where a traditional military would have lost dozens of ships, the human fleet simply absorbed the attack, its nano-adaptive armor transforming to neutralize the threat. Weapon analysis complete, Rodriguez's tactical AI reported. Defensive patterns optimized. Counterattack sequence initiated. The human response was not a simple return of fire. It was a coordinated quantum assault that seemed to tear the very fabric of space-time. Quantum cannons created localized spatial distortions, effectively removing sections of Kraxan vessels from normal existence. Communication networks were simultaneously attacked and invaded, with the human fleet's distributed intelligence breaking through Kraxan defensive systems faster than they could even recognize the intrusion. Kraxan fleet commanders watched in mounting terror as their most advanced defensive systems were systematically dismantled. These were not just ships. They were a living, thinking network that could predict and counter threats before they fully formed. They're not just fighting. One Kraxan tactical analyst whispered in horror. They're evolving in real time. Each human vessel carried more computational power than entire planetary networks. Their distributed intelligence could analyze millions of combat scenarios simultaneously, developing and discarding strategies faster than any biological intelligence could comprehend. They could predict enemy movements, counter tactics before they were implemented, and adapt to changing battlefield conditions in microseconds. The quantum communication network allowed for instantaneous coordination that made traditional military communication look primitive. Ships could share tactical information, redistribute defensive capabilities, and coordinate attacks faster than light could travel. It was less a battle and more a symphony of technological destruction. Admiral Thompson watched the tactical displays, understanding the profound nature of what was unfolding. This was more than a military engagement. This was a demonstration of humanity's fundamental capacity for adaptation and survival. "We are not just fighting," Thompson communicated to the fleet. "We are making a statement about who we are." The Kraxan fleet began to fragment, not through traditional damage, but through a complete breakdown of their systemic integrity. Quantum entanglement weapons created cascading failures in their defensive networks. Adaptive nano-armor neutralized weapon systems before they could fully discharge. Communication networks were invaded and repurposed faster than they could be defended. What had begun as a massive Kraxan offensive became a systematic deconstruction of their entire military capability. The human fleet moved with a precision and intelligence that suggested something beyond traditional warfare. This was a species-level response to an existential threat. Commander Rodriguez's voice cut through the quantum communication network. Primary objective achieved. Kraxan offensive capabilities neutralized. The universe watched in stunned silence as humanity demonstrated a level of technological capability that rewrote every understanding of interstellar conflict. The Kraxan had made a fatal mistake. They had not just attacked a colony. They had awakened a force of nature. The quantum communication intercepts began almost immediately after the first battle. Dr. Rebecca Williams watched the alien communication networks with a mixture of scientific fascination and cold determination. What the Kraxan didn't understand was that humanity's warfare extended far beyond physical combat. Each intercepted communication became a weapon in itself. The Kraxan communication networks were sophisticated by galactic standards, quantum encrypted channels that should have been impossible to penetrate. But the human fleet's distributed intelligence did more than break through these defenses. They rewrote them, turning the Kraxan's own communication systems into instruments of psychological devastation. Commander Jennifer Rodriguez oversaw the most intricate psychological operation in human history. The intercepted communications weren't just studied, they were systematically manipulated. Where the Kraxan expected military intelligence, they received something far more terrifying: the complete deconstruction of their psychological foundations. "We're not just fighting," Rodriguez explained to her senior tactical team. "We're dismantling their entire conceptual understanding of warfare." The first phase involved strategic disinformation. Human tactical AI systems began inserting carefully crafted messages into Kraxan communication networks. These weren't simple false communications, but complex psychological constructs designed to create maximum cognitive dissonance. The messages suggested impossible scenarios, hinted at capabilities that defied the Kraxan's understanding of physics and military strategy. Kraxan fleet commanders began to receive transmission fragments that suggested the human fleet could predict their movements with impossible precision. Strategic plans were subtly altered, communication protocols mysteriously compromised. The very fabric of their military hierarchy began to fracture. Dr. Eric Chen, the lead researcher on quantum communication systems, understood the profound psychological warfare being waged. "We're attacking their perception of reality," he explained during a classified briefing. "Every intercepted message is a precision-crafted psychological weapon." The human fleet's communication strategy went beyond traditional information warfare. They created entire false narratives that played on the Kraxan's deepest cultural fears. Messages suggested the existence of technologies that could literally unmake entire civilizations. Tactical transmissions hinted at capabilities so advanced they bordered on the mystical. Kraxan military analysts began to experience what psychological researchers would later call existential cognitive breakdown. Their most secure communication networks became sources of terror. Every message carried the potential to completely unravel their understanding of their own military capabilities. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez managed the Psychological Warfare Division with surgical precision. Her team didn't just intercept communications, they rewrote the very language of conflict. Kraxan military protocols were subtly altered, creating cascading failures of trust and communication. "We're creating a crisis of perception," Martinez explained. Their biggest weakness is their belief in their own technological superiority. The psychological assault extended beyond communication networks. The human fleet began leaving behind quantum signatures that defied explanation. Battlefield remnants that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Communication fragments that suggested impossible technological capabilities. Kraxan military leadership began to fracture. Some believed the human communications were elaborate deceptions. Others became convinced that humanity represented something beyond a traditional military threat, a fundamental reimagining of technological and biological potential. Military units began to turn on each other. The carefully constructed Kraxan hierarchical system collapsed under the weight of manufactured doubt and strategic psychological manipulation. What had been a unified military force became a collection of increasingly paranoid and disconnected units. "They're fighting themselves now," Rodriguez noted during a strategic assessment. "We've become less of an external threat and more of an existential crisis." The quantum communication networks became a battlefield of perception. Human tactical AI systems created communication patterns that suggested multiple simultaneous realities. Kraxan commanders received transmission fragments that implied the human fleet could exist in multiple locations simultaneously, could predict outcomes with impossible precision, could manipulate the very fabric of space-time. Dr. Williams watched the psychological deconstruction with clinical fascination. "We're not just defeating them militarily," she explained. "We're dismantling their entire conceptual understanding of conflict." By the time the Kraxan realized the full extent of the psychological warfare, their military structure had already begun to collapse. Not from external damage, but from an internal crisis of perception that cut to the core of their civilization's understanding of technological superiority. The human fleet had done more than win a battle. They had rewritten the very language of interstellar conflict. And they were just getting started. The negotiation chamber on the neutral space station Horizon Prime was unlike any diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Commander Jennifer Rodriguez sat at the center of a quantum-stabilized conference room, her presence both a weapon and a message. Kraxan High Chancellor Vornak entered, his once imposing figure now seeming diminished. The psychological warfare had done its work. Where once stood a proud military leader, now sat a being consumed by existential doubt. The human delegation represented something far more terrifying than a simple military threat. They were a fundamental reimagining of technological and social potential. "We are not here to destroy you," Rodriguez began, her voice calm and precise. "We are here to offer a fundamental transformation." The Kraxan diplomatic corps had been systematically dismantled. Their communication networks, their military hierarchy, their entire societal structure had been exposed as fundamentally fragile. What had begun as a simple colonial attack had become an existential crisis for an entire civilization. Dr. Eric Chen, the lead communication strategist, sat beside Rodriguez. His quantum translation matrix could do more than simply convert language. It could analyze cultural nuance, psychological subtext, and potential communication trajectories in milliseconds. "Your civilization stands at a crossroads," Chen explained, holographic displays showing the cascading failures within Kraxan society. "We can offer integration or isolation. The choice is yours." The holographic displays told a brutal story. The human fleet had not just defeated the Kraxan military. They had systematically dismantled their entire technological and social infrastructure. Communication networks were compromised. Military units had fractured. The carefully constructed hierarchical system of Kraxan society had collapsed under the weight of manufactured doubt and strategic psychological manipulation. High Chancellor Vornak understood the true nature of their defeat. This was not a traditional military confrontation. This was a fundamental challenge to the Kraxen's understanding of technological and social potential. "What do you want?" Vornak asked, his voice barely a whisper. Rodriguez leaned forward, her movement calculated and precise. "We want you to evolve." The terms of surrender were unlike any in galactic history. The human delegation didn't seek territory, resources, or traditional war reparations. They sought something far more profound. A complete restructuring of Kraxen society, open access to scientific research, dissolution of militaristic hierarchical structures, integration of democratic principles, a complete overhaul of their technological and social systems. Dr. Sarah Williams, the lead cinesociological researcher, explained the core of their proposal. Your civilization has reached a technological plateau. Your hierarchical structure and military-focused society have limited your potential. We're offering a path to true evolution. The Kraxen had always believed in their technological superiority. The human fleet had systematically dismantled that belief. Their quantum communication networks, their adaptive battle platforms, their psychological warfare capabilities had demonstrated a level of technological and social innovation that the Kraxen couldn't comprehend. "We're not conquering you," Rodriguez continued. "We're offering you a chance to become something more." The negotiations were a delicate dance of technological demonstration and psychological transformation. Holographic displays showed potential technological integrations. Quantum communication matrices demonstrated collaborative potential. The human delegation didn't just present terms, they presented a vision of a fundamentally different way of existing. Lieutenant Michael Chen managed the technical demonstrations. Each presentation was a carefully crafted psychological weapon, showing the Kraxen not just what humanity could do, but what they could become if they abandoned their current societal structures. Vornak and his delegation watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The human approach was unlike any diplomatic engagement in galactic history. They weren't seeking submission. They were offering transformation. "Your current path leads to stagnation," Rodriguez explained. "We're offering you a chance to reimagine your entire civilization." The terms were clear. Full technological and cultural exchange. Dissolution of militaristic governmental structures. Integration of democratic principles. Access to human research networks. The complete reimagining of their societal potential. For the Kraxen, it was a moment of profound existential crisis. Surrender was not just a military decision. It was a complete philosophical transformation. As the negotiations continued, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had done more than win a war. They had presented a fundamental challenge to how an advanced civilization could exist. The universe was about to change, and the Kraxen would change with it. 5 years after the initial conflict, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The Kraxen reconstruction zone had become the most watched experiment in galactic history. What had begun as a military confrontation had transformed into the most radical social engineering project ever attempted. Commander Jennifer Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the Horizon Prime Station, watching the remarkable transformation below. Dr. Eric Chen approached, his quantum tablet displaying real-time societal metrics. "The numbers are extraordinary," he said, pointing to holographic displays showing unprecedented levels of technological and social innovation. The Kraxen civilization had been completely reimagined. Their militaristic hierarchical structure had been dismantled, replaced by a collaborative governance model that drew from human democratic principles and the Kraxen's own unique cultural strengths. Advanced educational systems, open research networks, and a complete restructuring of technological development had unleashed potential that had been suppressed for millennia. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez managed the cultural integration team. Her approach was not about replacement, but about collaborative evolution. Kraxen scientists now worked alongside human researchers in ways that would have been unimaginable 5 years earlier. The quantum communication networks that had once been weapons of psychological warfare now served as bridges of understanding. The most profound changes were happening at the societal level. The Craxans' previously rigid social structures had been transformed. Education systems were completely redesigned, emphasizing creativity, collaborative problem-solving, and individual potential. Where once there had been strict hierarchical control, now there was an explosion of innovation and individual expression. "We didn't conquer them," Rodriguez explained during a strategic review. "We gave them the opportunity to become something more." The technological exchange had been equally transformative. Craxan quantum research, long suppressed by their militaristic government, now flourished. Human researchers were stunned by the innovative potential that had been locked away. Collaborative research projects were producing breakthroughs that were reshaping understanding of physics, communication, and social organization. Dr. Rebecca Williams oversaw the most ambitious scientific collaboration in galactic history. Joint research teams were developing technologies that defied previous understanding. Quantum communication systems that could bridge entire star systems. Adaptive environmental technologies that could transform hostile planets. Medical breakthroughs that promised to extend life and eliminate disease. The economic transformation was equally profound. The Craxans' previous resource extraction model had been replaced by a collaborative development approach. Their industrial capabilities, once focused entirely on military production, now turned toward solving complex technological and social challenges. Admiral Michael Thompson reviewed the latest strategic assessments. The human approach had done more than defeat a military threat. They had demonstrated a fundamentally different model of galactic interaction. "We're not just changing one civilization," Thompson noted during a classified briefing. "We're presenting a new model for how advanced species can interact." Other galactic civilizations watched with a mixture of terror and fascination. The human approach was unlike any previous model of conflict resolution. They had turned a potentially apocalyptic confrontation into an opportunity for collaborative transformation. The Craxan reconstruction became a beacon of possibility. Research teams from dozens of galactic civilizations studied the unprecedented social and technological transformation. What had begun as a military conflict had become the most significant social experiment in galactic history. Lieutenant Michael Chen managed the cultural exchange programs. The quantum communication networks now served as platforms for unprecedented levels of understanding. Language barriers fell. Cultural misunderstandings were resolved through sophisticated translation matrices that could capture not just words, but entire cultural contexts. Rodriguez understood the profound nature of what they had accomplished. This was not about conquest. This was about potential. "We gave them a choice," she told her team. "Evolve or stagnate." They chose to evolve. The Craxan planetary systems began to transform. Cities redesigned with collaborative architecture. Research centers that blended human and Craxan technological approaches. Educational systems that emphasized individual potential and collective growth. As the galaxy watched, humanity had done something unprecedented. They had turned a potential apocalyptic conflict into an opportunity for collective growth. The military threat had become a catalyst for transformation. The universe would never be the same, and humanity was just beginning to understand its true potential.